Welcome back to Trails in the Flash. My name is Brian, also known as The Flash. In 2012, I took the biggest leap of faith and took my first steps on the Appalachian Trail. 5.5 months later, I found myself standing on top of that Katahdin sign, just celebrating like it was the biggest thing to ever happen in my life. And the entire journey from start to finish was something I will always treasure and cherish. But the journey wasn't just on that trail. It actually started 1.5 years before I took my first steps. I was pretty much an amateur hiker and backpacker. I'd never spent more than one night out on the trail at any time. And so really trying to figure what in the world I was getting myself into. I wanted to prepare because I wanted to be successful. When you quit your job and you tell all these people you're going to do this big thing, to me, there was no worse feeling than coming back a week later and was like, well, gave it a good shot. So I wanted to do everything I could to prepare myself to be successful. So today we're going to start a 4-part series on through hiking the Appalachian Trail. First part is going to be how I physically prepared to hike the trail. So first thing I did, I hiked. It's that simple. I put on my backpack and all the gear that I was taking, and I would go for 5, 6, 7 mile hikes. Now, I didn't necessarily need to go out to a trail. I would go to a walking path. I would walk through town. I would go out to my dad's and walk some of the old 4-wheeler trails. Any chance I had that had some ups and downs, I would put my backpack on and start walking. I actually scared a lady one time in a public park. She thought I was homeless. And I'm like, no ma'am, I'm training to hike the Appalachian Trail. She didn't buy it, but it was funny nonetheless. But it's that simple. Get out there with your gear and start walking. You're going to start building up those leg muscles. You're going to feel how your backpack feels on your back, your shoulders, and your hips, and you can start making those adjustments so that when you hit the trail, you're going to be ready to go. The second thing I did when I started preparing to hike the Appalachian Trail was I would camp outside in my own backyard. That's right, just like a little kid, I would put my tent up with my sleeping pad, my sleeping bag, and I would go out on the coldest nights in January, February, and camp. And I did this because I wanted to make sure that I was going to be warm at night. So I was testing out my sleeping bag and my sleeping pad to make sure that I was going to stay nice and warm. There's nothing worse than not being able to sleep because you're freezing cold. And I wanted to make sure that going out on the trail, especially starting in March, I would be prepared for those cold nights. Now, fortunately, it was 90 degrees when I started in Georgia. It didn't really hit the cold temperatures till North Carolina, Tennessee, and even Virginia. And luckily, some of those nights, there were 15 of us crammed in a tiny shelter, and all of us were spooning and staying warm. It was a sight to see if you were to walk by that shelter. But I never had a night where I was extremely cold and froze to death. Always warm, even on those rainy nights when you get into the shelter soaking wet, I was able to stay warm. The third thing I did was to try to treat any ailments that I was feeling before I left on the through hike. So I had this really pesky plantar's wart on the ball of my foot. And it actually would come and go as far as the pain level, but if I stepped on it just right, it would shoot this sharp pain right through my foot. And I knew, with my feet being the most valuable thing I had on me on the Appalachian Trail, I needed to make sure that wasn't going to be an issue. So I set up a doctor's appointment, had that thing cut out, which I lost a big chunk of foot doing that, but did it with enough time that allowed my foot to heal up, and I was able to hike with no pain in my feet. I knew one guy who actually had the trail named 2%. He got off trail in Georgia to get cortisone shots in both his knees, and he said it looked like they were injecting 2% milk into him, so he took the trail named 2% Tim. So anything you can do to curve any bodily pain or anything that's causing you pain before you start the trail, I encourage you to do that. The fourth thing I did, being related to seeing a doctor, was I had a doctor friend who I asked just simply if she could give me a prescription for 800 milligram ibuprofen. I knew that I was going to be feeling some pain out there on those hikes, and Nothing like good vitamin I to help relieve some of that. So it's a good thing to get just to help alleviate some pain when you're laying in your tent or shelter at the end of the night. The last thing I did to physically prepare for a thru hike was participate in a gear shakedown. What a gear shakedown is former thru hikers going through your backpack, telling you what you need, what you don't need, and looking at you like you're stupid for carrying some of that stuff. It's not as bad as it sounds, and they actually give you some great tips, and you learn a few things that you may not have known. Ultimately, I probably shaved about 2 pounds out of my backpack based on the advice given from former thru hikers. Those are some ways that I got ready physically to hike the Appalachian Trail. What are some ways you're getting ready? What are some things you've done that have helped out? If you're a former thru hiker, what did you do to prepare? Go on and comment below on this video, and that way we can get a conversation started and hopefully help some future thru hikers get all the way up to Maine or down to Georgia if they start in Maine. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and subscribe and even like this video. It'll go a long way in helping this channel out. And until next time, we'll see you out on the trail.